So, for those of you listening, I'm sitting here with Danielle Parker DeGood, and she is from GR Studio Space, and she has studios located in Grand Rapids, Michigan. We're going to talk about that today, what you need to know, the things that maybe you don't know about owning a studio, and all the things. So, welcome, Danielle.
Thank you.
We
Glad
had
we
some
finally got here.
Yes, we had some technical difficulties as we were trying to get in. She is in one of her studios, so if you hear background noises, that is probably why. So
Thanks
bear
very
with
much.
us, but this is good information to hear, and kind of going from that. So yeah, Danielle, kind of tell us about how you got involved with photography.
Photography? Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. It was 22 years ago. Yeah, when I went to college my freshman year, I just fell in love with the idea of creating images and capturing moments. I was watching little kids as a side job and just wanted to give parents some memory, and that was the beginning. But I didn't take it seriously until, man, 10 years ago, maybe.
Okay.
And that's when
Yeah.
it kind of started to gear more towards an actual career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. When did you decide to open a studio, or like what was that pivotal moment
I
for you?
didn't.
Oh,
It's odd.
okay.
Yeah. It
Tell us about
literally fell into my lap, kind of.
that. Oh,
I had a studio over off of like the Ann Street exit, and I was
okay.
sharing the space with somebody that did hair and makeup,
Okay.
and it was not big at all. Probably half of the size of the one I'm sitting in. And I had a request for an extended family shoot. So I needed to find something bigger.
Mm,
Um, and that's when the idea of even renting a studio came to mind. And I couldn't find anything. And I stumbled across what was GR Studio Space then, because I did
mm,
not start this business. Studio 3 was the original studio that everybody has known for decades, probably.
mm. Yeah.
And I rented that, and I thought the idea was really cool, but it was already being done. So I wasn't going to,
Mhm.
steal it. And the owner posted she was getting out.
Mm,
It was too much. She had a young kid. Um, and I talked to my husband and took a huge leap of faith and drained our savings to buy the business.
yeah. Yeah,
So it
because
was
that's
crazy.
a big leap. Yeah, to kind of
Yes,
when you're
it
like
was
unknown,
terrifying.
like, is this gonna make me money? Is this not?
Is this gonna, yeah, put us under? I hope
Yeah.
not. It was scary, very scary.
So how
But
long
I
ago
grew.
was that?
How long ago?
Yeah.
That was May of 2019.
Okay. Because I
So
remember
right
using
before
that
COVID.
studio like prior to that, and I was like, "Oh, I've been here before," after renting it through you, and I was like, "Hmm." But you had I'm trying to remember. That must have been around the time that I started like getting tours and all that stuff to like use your studios. So how many studios have you owned all together? Not currently, but like all together.
So it started out with two,
Okay.
Studio 3 and Market Studio. And then I grew and added Loft, so that's three. And then I opened Curve, which, I mean, is it one
It's
or
my
four?
favorite.
I think it's four.
Okay.
So I guess seven
Yeah.
altogether.
Okay. Yeah, because her Curve Studio, guys, it has three different rentals. Well, actually, more than that.
Because
There's
there's a kitchen.
three private spaces, but there's more to it than that. If you want to check it out, you can go to her website and kind of see what that Curve Studio
I need
looks
to
like.
update that. It's on a long to-do
I think
list.
that's the thing we all need. We all want to say we need to update because we just can't stay on top of things, right?
No, no, we cannot.
But kind of tell me like that transition into owning your studio. Like what was involved as far as like making it yours? What did you have to figure out that you're willing to share?
A lot. And that is a key point, what I'm willing to share, because I'm sure everybody notices there are a lot of studios popping up, especially in the last 6 months. So
Mm,
a lot of people ask me how to do it, and
hmm
I'm not going to tell you how to compete with me.
Yeah.
but there was a lot that went into it, a lot more than I thought, to be legally sound and,
Mhm.
insurance and all that. It was quite a bit. You have to file with the state and
Yeah.
it was more than I
Basically,
thought.
like getting an LLC or whatnot, and then
Yeah.
having it. Is it different for every studio, or is it all under the same?
No, it's all under the same, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
Even my insurance policies, I can just add and remove
Yeah,
addresses.
that's
It's
nice.
not a
Cause
big
yeah,
deal.
especially if you're like, oh, here's another one I want to do. So if you're listening and you're like, okay, what does this mean? So she owns studio spaces around the area. I Do you lease these or do you own the building
I lease them.
spaces?
I
And
wish I
then
owned
what she does is she sublets basically time to other photographers to use her studio. So she has like a scheduler set up so photographers can come in, or even events, right? Like you have it where
to a
people can
certain
use it.
extent. I
Yeah.
limit that because photographers are first and foremost. So
Yeah. So then you can come in and use this space, so you don't have to own a whole entire studio. You can come in and use it on like an hourly basis. Um, uh, to use for your clients, which is really nice. There are some that are popping up around, but yeah, you definitely are one of the original big spaces to like kind of use and things like that. So people are kind of copying your model, I've noticed over
very much so,
yeah,
yeah.
it's very interesting. But let's kind of dive into like the ins and outs of that people might not understand. Um, because I feel like everyone thinks when they're going to get a studio, like, oh, this space is going to be mine. I can do this. I'll just rent it out to someone so that I can make the rent. Like,
Yeah.
let's talk about like some of the things that sound like amazing, but maybe they aren't necessarily all roses in the end.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, what are some misconceptions you think photographers think about owning a studio?
I mean, I've seen it happen many, many times. Whether it comes to fruition or not, I see that little spark in the brain where it's like, oh, well, if I had my own, I could make it how I'd like. And, oh, we'll just rent it out to cover the rent and everything will be great.
Hmm.
And everybody thinks that there's a way to prevent the damage and the abuse.
Hmm.
For you that I have tried everything and I have
Yep.
to every suggestion. It's very, very difficult unless you're going to stay there, check in and out after each rental. The amount of damage is unbelievable. The amount of disrespect is unbelievable. And I see the frustrated posts from the other studio owners uh, at least monthly. I
Yeah.
do follow them, obviously.
Hmm.
And that's something I don't think people can comprehend. You can think you do, but until
Yeah.
your heart and soul is poured into something that can be
Hmm.
destroyed the next day, you can't imagine
Yeah,
it.
exactly. It's that is one of the things where it's like, cannot believe how much people will treat things like that. And you've put things into place. Let's kind of talk about what it looks like when someone rents. They book a time slot, correct, on your
Yes.
program. And then usually it's an hour. Do you do half hour blocks? Okay.
The minimum is an hour, but you can add half
Yeah.
an hour
So you
or
can
hours.
add
Yeah.
on to that. Um, so kind of walk through like when they come in, let's talk about like what's available to them in your studio, because you're like, this is where I see you set apart. So yours is usually like the lower cost of like competitive pricing in the area, and you also offer like a lot of supplies to photographers.
I
um
do.
let's kind of talk about like what's available, what the process is from when they come in into like what they leave, um and go from there.
Okay. Um, so I try to, have everything prepared from the setup process. When you contact me initially to become a renter, that's where we kind of talk about the processes. Everything is self booking, self entry. I'm not here to walk you through all of it. You should know what you're doing, even your first time. Um, you will either have Bluetooth keys, so an app on your phone, which I believe you have,
Mm-hmm.
or you'll type in a code and you will either access the keys from a lockbox or you'll open Curve front door and the padlock on the studio here at Curve. It's all electronic, all Igloo Home. Um, that gets you in, and once you're in, you can expect continuous lights, a ring light, a strobe, triggers, obviously props, and those are in every single studio. And then there's the unique oh, and seamless now seamless is so popular.
The seamless paper.
I actually ordered 18 rolls,
Oh,
so
wow.
yeah, it was becoming an issue. So I was like, whatever, I'm just going with Norman camera. Can I tack onto your stock order? But that's available. And then each studio has different things, different backdrops, cloth backdrops, stuff like that.
Mm,
But it's always the basics, lights, what you need to be successful. My whole goal is to help photographers be better, get more
mm.
business. Obviously, brings me more business. So you
Yeah,
succeed, I succeed. Great.
yeah, exactly. And then when they're done renting, like what's the process like before they leave and that kind of stuff?
The ideal process, what they should
Yes.
do. Despite hot pink signs, a lot gets skipped. um, put things back. I don't care if you come in and shove all the furniture into one corner. Fine, make it your own. Just put it back.
Hmm.
Clean up any messes. I don't mind. I don't have a posted pet policy, but most people know at this point my pet policy is you send a contract. So you're liable for messes, damage, whatever.
Hmm.
Clean up the pet hair. That's a big one that gets skipped. And they're supposed to take pictures and send them to me and lock up and leave. That's it.
Hmm. Yeah. I know you like, and when I realized it wasn't all like sunshines and roses was when you would say, "Thank you for sending this to me. You have no idea like how bad it is." Because like the things like I would say is just, and we'll get into like the whole pandemic situation, but like sending you pictures and then telling you like, "Hey, this is out. This is what's going on in the studio. Have you noticed this or whatever?" Just to make you aware, because I know you're not there like all the time.
Well, and
It's
even
like,
if
how
I
can you
am
be?
here quite a bit, but I don't go around and sit on all the furniture, for
Yeah,
example. That's a big one. I don't
yeah,
see a leg broken unless I sit on it, and I don't have
right.
time to sit.
Yeah, and that's one thing that people don't realize is like the durability, even the durability of your furniture like doesn't necessarily mean a whole lot. You're going to get a beautiful piece of furniture in there, you're going to expect it to get abused.
Yes.
And a lot of times like it might not be the photographer, but it could be their client, but they're the sole responsibility party to like make sure their client isn't abusing those things, and sometimes that's not always happening, right?
No. And
So, yeah.
honestly, I just want to know. I
Yeah.
don't think I've ever charged anybody on I need to know so somebody doesn't get hurt or so I can fix it and it doesn't get worse. And that's a huge thing. People I think are scared to tell me, but pretty nice.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we don't realize like what's involved as a photographer too, like on the other side, but it really is like however you leave it, it's how it's going to be for the next person. And I mean, it's just common courtesy to just say
That's
something.
lacking.
And that's the hardest thing. It's like I'm always like, I don't want you to think I did it, but yeah, if they are to the point, I know there's times where it's like this happened, like just tell you that it happened. Um just so that you are aware for the next person, because I know there's been some furniture, I don't know what is with the peacock chairs. I
Oh
don't know
my
if this is like a
goodness.
thing, but everyone loves those, but they're so
Mm.
fragile.
Yes.
Like,
I just found a destroyed one this week again.
did you go like all office space on it afterwards?
I
Just
have not
take a
yet.
hammer to it.
I'm so desensitized to it. And that's the thing I
Mm,
think people don't realize. They're even what you said. I don't want you to think I did it. I
yeah.
don't care anymore. I really don't. I mean, I expect so much damage. The thing
Hmm.
that gets to me is not knowing.
Yeah.
That is it.
Well, and especially I know you've mentioned like the glitter thing, because sometimes like people bring balloons in and for some reason they might have glitter in it, and then you pop it and it's like everywhere. And it's like,
Or a chalk
can
bomb.
you? Oh,
That was fun. That was
what?
super. A chalk bomb. The
Stop
gender
it.
reveal. Yeah, in
In
studio.
a studio. Oh my
Mm.
goodness.
It was hot pink everywhere.
Oh, did it stain everything?
It didn't stain, but I swung in at 10:30 at night because I had steel case coming in the next day and found that. So it was a good
Oh my
5 hours
goodness.
into the middle of the night
Yeah.
cleaning.
Oh, man. Yeah, and you don't want to come across as the owner that's just like yelling at everybody all the time. It's like,
I
"Oh
don't
my
have the
gosh,
energy
like
for that.
yeah,
Mm-mm.
just respect the space." It's just, oh, I get it. It is
Yeah.
frustration. Um yeah, so let's kind of talk about what makes a good renter. Like tell us what an ideal studio renter would look like.
An ideal studio renter communicates with me. I know, surprising. Um, and I think one of the things that gets to me is, well, I wasn't sure, so well,
Mm,
if you didn't follow with asked me, then it's not great. Um, People make assumptions or judgment calls, and that's not usually great. So if you ask me what you should do if you have a question, or in general, if you need me, call me. Just communicating. That's it.
yeah,
The umbrella thing I need is communication.
yeah. So
It.
tell
I
me
don't.
kind of yeah, go ahead, sorry.
I was just gonna say I don't care if you break things, or I mean obviously not recklessly, but there's not a lot of mistakes that are going to get to me. It's
Yeah.
just the communication.
So you have this policy where you're like, just call me. If there's issues, just call me because I'm sure you get texts all the time because people are sending you the photos and all that kind of
Constant.
stuff. So how often are you with, let's see, you have one, two, three right now, and then you have several in one. So how often are you getting calls from renters?
Um, Not actually too terribly often.
Mm,
Less than I would like because I still get a lot of texts that were supposed to be important, like that I
mm,
needed to see. And the thing people don't quite comprehend is, I mean, I've got over 1,500 contracts on file.
yeah,
That's a large amount of people. Granted, they're not all current renters, but
yeah,
my phone is
still.
going off constantly. I can't
Mm-hmm.
live looking at my phone. Um, but on like a Saturday or Sunday, I mean, I would say probably 5 to 10 a day.
Mm,
So it's not too terrible, but
yeah.
and everybody always thinks they're bugging me. I always hear that. I'm sorry to bother you. I'm sorry I'm bugging you. I'm like, you're not. This is what you're supposed to do. This is what I want you to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah. You're like, I wouldn't pick up if you were
Yeah,
bugging me.
I could not answer, but
Yeah. Has like doing the code, like like codes helped that any? Because you probably got a lot where like the lockbox isn't opening or whatever in the past. Has that helped?
it's the same process I've had the whole time.
Okay.
So no, there still is the lockbox. A huge one is, people don't read my initial text that I send that's obnoxiously long, but it has all the information,
Yeah.
or they don't read the information about where to go or to use the website for directions. So
Yeah.
I would say half of them are at the wrong lockbox.
Mm,
I get
yeah.
that every weekend.
Yeah. So when you have someone that's coming in that wants to rent for the first time, what does that process look like now? Because I don't know if it's still the same as when I started, but you
No,
would do a tour, I know, in the beginning where they went and saw all three properties. I know that was helpful because I got lost during that tour where to find the next building.
remember
Um,
that.
because
I do
yeah, I
remember.
don't know why the one space, they're all the same address, just it's like confusing. But yeah,
Yeah.
like kind of talk about that process. Maybe talk about what it used to be and what it is now for someone who's
So
renting for the first time.
when I took over this business, I think there were like 180 active renters or something like that.
Okay.
And again, now I'm at more like 1,500.
Yeah.
It was a lot easier to manage at that time. I also was not, I don't, there wasn't a website. So I wasn't searchable or anything. I had a
Mm,
lot less inquiries. So I could do in person tours based on need. Somebody contacted me, we would coordinate our schedule. And then if anybody else in the meantime inquired, I'd add them to that tour or do another one.
mm.
And I was doing them weekly and it wasn't a big deal. Um, then COVID actually kind of was a blessing with the tours because I recorded them on video and I no longer had to go walk people through. The downside is that I need to re-record them because the information, some of it is outdated. But now they just watch videos
Mm.
and it seems to be working great. It's more convenient, obviously, for me and for them.
Yeah.
And it must convey enough information because I don't have a lot of people getting lost in buildings or anything like that.
Yeah, I know for me personally, like I was recording videos for my clients, just be like, this is how you get to this building and so forth. Because if you're listening, you're probably, you could be from Grand Rapids, you couldn't be, but the area that it's in, like her studios are all around like the same block. And so a lot of them have the exact same address. They're just like south or north and in a different building. And so people are going to the wrong building a lot of times. And they're like,
Well,
why is this not working?
they've revamped that and made it worse.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so they've been like working, I guess, on renumbering to make it
Oh,
more clear.
geez.
So then I changed all the addresses to go to the parking lots of the correct buildings, and
Yes.
apparently they have recently changed them again.
Oh,
So
my
now they're still
goodness.
going to the wrong place.
Well, and I know like when I first started renting with you, there was construction on the road. So
Oh
like then
my
we had to
goodness.
like reroute and we were like, is this ever going to be finished? So like trying
I
to get to the studio from behind, like you've gone through the works, man. And then you throw a
that
pandemic
construction
in
is
there, like
so insane. I literally chased down the foreman of that, like the fishback, whatever guy in his
yeah.
truck. And I was like knocking on his window like a crazy person. Can you tell me when this is going to be done? I need
Yeah.
to know.
Oh
Oh,
my
that was
gosh.
crazy.
Yeah, cuz I mean, it's a headache trying to get like all these renters to know where to go and like how to get there. And because, yeah, we were taking like a back way in, but then trying to do that by address is really hard, especially if this is like your first time. And then you're like, our clients are trying to find a way in there and
Yeah,
they're
it's
like, how
not
do
just
I
you
get
guys. Then you
there?
have your clients coming.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you have mini sessions, you could have 10 of them
Oh,
coming.
yeah. Cause I had that with mini sessions for a while. And then you're like, as a photographer, trying to like answer calls while you're doing a mini session, I had to like hire on an assistant for those and just say, answer my phone when someone gets lost and help them find their way here.
Yeah.
Because I'm always like, if you're late, that eats into your time. Like I don't have time to like make this up or prolong. So yeah, there was a lot of that too. But yeah, that's definitely something that sometimes people don't consider when they're trying to figure out like how do we do that, and it's all time because you rent by like the hour and then add on time. And I think a lot of times people aren't allocating too when it comes to cleaning up after themselves. And I know during the pandemic you were very gracious during that time and gave people like that buffer.
Hmm.
And we're going to kind of dig into the pandemic a little bit, but you gave them that buffer like, hey, this is your sanitize time, like use this time to
Yeah.
clean up. um, so let's kind of dive into the pandemic and what that looked like as a owner, and we can kind of talk about it as a renter too. I can kind of give that piece. But what did it look like for you during the pandemic? Which I should say, Michigan was like a full shutdown for a couple months. We were full on masks for a while. So there was like a whole sanitization process you had. There was limits to how many people could be in certain buildings, which I know was probably nationwide or worldwide even. But let's kind of talk about like changes you had to make to your studio to make that possible for you.
So it was odd, and it's funny listening to you talk about it is reminding me of some of this stuff. It was very difficult because I'm not just doing this to pay the rent so I can shoot in these spaces. I do very much care. I don't even shoot anymore. I very much care
That
about
was
my
another question I
renters.
was going to ask. Do you even do this
Barely,
anymore?
yeah. And so it was very important for me to not just make them feel comfortable, but also make their clients feel comfortable and abide by the ever changing rules and regulations
Oh
around
yeah.
it. I read through, and my husband and I would both read through the new, what were they called? Executive orders or whatever? I don't remember
Yeah,
the
like how many people could be in there at a time and
Yeah, and then
like
like you throw in that studio rental isn't
mhm.
really a actual class of business. Like even my tax
Yeah.
guy is like, I don't know, we'll put you here. So we're trying to figure out which ones apply to me. What am I? I had my lawyer involved. He's reading through. We're just taking guesses here, but
Yeah.
I had to make some judgment calls and I was totally shut down, actually probably shorter than most businesses because of that. I wasn't a service or a salon or anything,
Mhm.
I was in a weird category of not being categorized. So I opened up in, I believe it was the end of May, beginning of June. So it was
Okay.
2 or 3 months of actual shutdown.
Yeah.
And then I had the posted signs. I put in hand sanitizer dispensers, and I had to find a cleaning. That was a fun one. I had to find a cleaning solution that was kind of error proof and also allergy
Yeah.
friendly because I have some weird health things that people don't really think about. But I know that a lot of cleaners are not okay for everybody. So I
Well,
ordered
and you have
blisters.
fabrics and
Yes,
then you
hard
have
surfaces. Oh my goodness.
um hard surfaces and then you have like bedding in there that you do too, which
Yes.
honestly, you're probably one of the only studios in the area that washes their bedding after every use.
So when I took over, that was not a thing. The sheets were just
Yeah.
on the bed. The quilt was just on the
Yeah.
bed. And it bothered me so much. And that was another kind of small blessing from COVID was, I can't leave them. I
Yeah.
had to research how long does COVID stay on sheets?
Yeah, right?
So I started washing them and that actually has worked out wonderfully. It's a pain in my butt, but for
Yeah.
you guys, I mean, how
But
nice.
also that's another thing like that renters need to tell you like I use the sheets. So like here's how
That
many
would
are
be,
left. That was something that you would always say, "Oh, I'm so glad you told me that." Because I would
yeah.
tell you like here's how many are left. Here's what's in the
Even
bin
just
just
a
so you
picture of the
know.
closet. Great. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Like I
Very
just need to
helpful.
know how many are left so if I need to come do laundry and that kind of stuff, which I know a lot of people like they just want to do like a shot of a family like cuddling on a bed or something like that and then you get newborns involved and you're like, "Oh my gosh, like
Yeah.
how do we make this work?" But yeah, that was a big thing too. So then you had like that cleaning process, and then
Yep.
like I know for me, I would let you know like, hey, this cleaning solution's almost empty. You might want to refill it. Like just kind of
Well,
know that kind of stuff. And
and I remember specifically you, and there were a few other people that stuck out in my mind because, I mean, you obviously were using it.
mm-hmm,
And when I didn't have you and the few other people coming through, the cleaner would last way longer than it should. And that's when I realized, people are just taking this 15 minutes. It, that's
mm-hmm,
sad. I
using
eventually
it for
put it away,
shooting
but
time.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like renters, sometimes they're like, oh, I'll just go over until someone knocks on the door and it's their turn, which
Yes,
is
they do.
super frustrating as someone next in line. So for me, like I set an alarm and I'm like, okay, I'm going to set my alarm so I know I have this much time to clean up. No, not everybody thinks that way. And I think it's as a good renter, like setting yourself up to know how much time you have left, but know like, hey, your clients are going to want to talk at the end of the session. Like, what do you need to do to like make sure it's cleaned up? Like give yourself time if you and your clients are going to talk, especially if it's like a newborn, like yeah, they're going to put them back in their clothes, they're going to change their diapers, which is a whole nother thing of like disposal of things. Like don't leave a dirty diaper in the studio
Oh my
when
goodness.
you don't know when the
Yes.
next person's coming in. But yeah, all the things that kind of go through um as a good rent, like be a good renter. Don't don't leave it like crap for the next person. Respect the space. Leave it better than you came. Like that's just my motto
Yes.
anyway.
And
Um
people, I
yeah.
think a lot of people rush out, like you said, either they just stay and take time, or
Mhm.
goodness, it's exactly 3 o'clock and my rental's over and I have to leave because that's when I'm supposed to be out. And I tell people, if you need more time, look at the calendar. It's online, it's refreshed real
Mm-hmm.
time. We can always add another 30 minutes if somebody's not coming in. I'd
Yeah.
rather do that than have you just leave it a disaster for the next person, because
Yeah,
that's not
exactly.
cool.
Yep.
Imagine being that person. You show up, you know how
Yeah.
much time you need, and oh, now I have to put everything back.
Yeah, it's never fun to be that person that's like knocking on the door and they're like, just a minute. And you're like, okay, we're 5 minutes into my time. Like,
That has been a really big
hurry
problem
it up.
again.
It's like, come
That
on.
or people knocking early. That's a new
Oh,
one.
really?
That's becoming a
Oh,
problem. Yeah.
that's annoying. Like,
Yeah.
just
It's not
wait.
your time yet. Just like know when you're supposed to be there.
Yeah.
Come when you start and end when you leave.
Well, and
Great.
your booking program, like, also will say, like, here's your start time and end time. So it's like, it's not like you don't know. You just have to read.
Well,
Like,
people
come on.
still have the misconception of, well, how this is probably my least favorite question, especially from people who have been set up as renters in the past, what, 3 years now?
Mm-hmm.
Because I didn't say this before, but after the videos, there is a quiz, 10-question quiz,
Oh,
reinforces key points, one of which is you can enter the studio early and stay a little late. True or false? If you get that right, why are you asking me, how early can I come again? How much before my time?
yeah. When did you
Ah,
implement that?
what?
The
The quiz.
quiz.
When I did videos. I just wanted to
Okay.
make sure people were actually watching it.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And so if I say you have to take a quiz, people are more likely to watch it.
I love
So
it. Oh my gosh.
also it does reinforce the things like cancellation policy, the things that are written
Yeah,
everywhere but people don't read.
yeah. Yeah, because you have a cancellation policy. Like if you cancel in less than 24 hours, you still have to pay. Which I mean it works out because and maybe I shouldn't say this, but at Christmas time when I'm waiting to find out like what are your studios going to look like, cuz you will put on there like this is the inspiration and then this is what it looks like and I'm like I want to know which one I want.
Yeah.
So I like rent it ahead of time, but I go and cancel it so someone else can use it. But and this was back when I was doing mini sessions, but yeah, it's those things where it's like let someone like know or like cancel like you're I mean, you got to make money. You can't just like hold on to that and be like, "Sorry, now no one can use it," you know.
Yeah.
Um
And
which
it's a very lax policy. 24
yeah, it
hours
is.
is very generous, and there are
Yeah.
still devastated people. But
It's
yeah,
crazy. It's
you
like, you know
blocked
what,
the
things happen.
schedule, so
Things happen or just talk to someone else and try and get someone else to rent it for you. I mean, it's how the world works. You know? Like
that I want to say a lot.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
just how the world works. I'm sorry you're not making money. You should have had a better policy. And this is total tough love, but you should have had a better policy for your own business, like to cover that rental cost. Like,
Yes.
sorry.
I do recommend, I don't usually give unsolicited advice, but I do usually recommend, pass the fee along to your client. Make that known well
Yeah.
before when you
Uh huh.
schedule. If you cancel on me day of, you'll have to pay the studio fee at least.
Mm
There's
hmm.
an easy way to do it.
Yep. And that's something I definitely implemented. It's like, you know what? And that's where like the initial like retainer for a business, like that's covering your studio fee. So if you cancel, you don't get that back. And those are my services that have already been rendered and can't be canceled. So
Yeah.
can't take that back. But tell me, like, when is the busiest time in your studio? Now we're coming from
November.
Michigan. What's that?
Hands down, November.
I was gonna say because like we're coming in from Michigan, so I'm sure you like have more rentals when it comes between like in those winter months when outside just doesn't look great. But
No.
November is your busiest time. And is it
Hands
because of like holiday setups? Okay.
Yeah, even if it's not necessarily my setups, it is
Yeah.
when everybody's shooting for Christmas cards or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, it's definitely the busiest.
Which I would seek because everyone's wanting fall colors. And then when you don't have fall colors anymore, you have studio time. Like that's
Yeah.
when you're like, okay, now is the deadline to get those holiday cards or holiday photos or gifts that you're giving family members. Let's get those out. And they do them then. That was when I rented, you know, like in November because we wanted to give it
Because
away
peak
as a
fall
gift.
color time is done.
Yeah. Yep,
I do
it's
remember
done, and
that.
then all the leaves are gone, so now we got crunch time to get in there. When would
Yes.
you say is like your slowest time? Really making me think now.
Probably August. I'm
Okay.
assuming because the same reason my life is insane. You know, kids are wrapping up summer, back to school,
Yeah.
prepping for all that. I
Yeah.
would think probably August.
That makes sense. Um, yeah, because everyone's, I mean, that's like how everything is, I feel like, is like once everyone's getting back to school, everything changes for everyone.
Yeah.
I know senior sessions, family photo shoots, like those are the times where things settle down because of the fact that other things are starting back
The
up.
sheer insanity of
Yeah.
family life,
Of how many kids do you have?
too.
Two. I have two as well. So yeah, I can only understand. Like that's just insane.
Yeah.
Um, so let's kind of talk about for your studio, what is something you wish you would have done sooner rather than later as owning? Because now it's been, you started in 2019, you said, right? And we're
Yeah.
in 2024. So what is something you wish you would have started in the beginning, maybe, or like early stages than to wait, not counting the pandemic?
Um, this is a difficult one because it's something that I wish I had done sooner, but now I don't have it again.
Oh,
I wish I would have um brought on help, or
mm,
I don't even know how to explain it. I have pretty much the entire thing resting on my shoulders, aside
yeah,
from making codes. And thank goodness my mother-in-law has started cleaning for me just to help.
yeah.
But it's a lot, and I wish I would have brought in somebody before it was too overwhelming to train somebody, if that makes
Mm,
sense.
yep. I
So
feel
now
like
I'm
we
in a place
all
where
feel that
I'm
way in our
very
businesses. Yeah, I
probably.
feel like any small business is like, what can, if I only knew I could outsource that sooner,
Yeah.
just so I wouldn't
Oh,
take
or the
all that on.
laundry. Oh my goodness.
Oh, yeah.
I was personally doing all of the laundry for like a year.
Oh.
It was insanity.
And then you got to do your own family's laundry. Like,
Yeah.
that's a lot. I
And
get
that
it
got
because
to the
my
point where
laundry piles up.
yeah. And I was
Like,
like actually angry at our sheets because I
oh,
was so sick of sheets. So it was
I
not a
bet.
good situation.
Oh my gosh. And then you're folding fitted sheets that are super annoying.
Yeah. I'm a
Yes.
pro now.
Which it's a business cost from the
It is.
studio. And then it's like, well, are you taking that out of like your home, like water usage and
Or the
detergent
wear
and
and
stuff
tear
like
on
that?
our
Like,
poor machines.
oh, yeah. And then your machines are, then what do you do if something happens to your washing machine at home? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, all those things that people don't think about, like hiring someone to clean your studios. Like, how often do you have to have your studios cleaned by like actual deep cleaning kinds of things?
Um, so right now my mother-in-law comes through about once a week,
Okay.
and that's in addition to what I do when I'm in them, because I
Yeah.
think that's another thing people don't realize. I really am here probably more than 40 hours a week.
Mm.
Um, and I can't go into one without I have OCD. I can't just like leave it. So if
Yeah.
I go in one, I'll clean. Um, but I would say at least weekly. I mean, they're back on schedule now, and I think people are noticing they're
Mm.
back to where I would like them to be for the most part, and they're getting
Yeah.
mopped weekly and vacuumed and put back and all that.
Yeah.
So yeah, probably
And
about
you
weekly.
have bathrooms in two of them, correct? And you have you have
Yes,
two bathrooms in Curve, and then you have one
and
in
one at
GR Studio space. And then the other one
yeah,
is like building owned or whatnot. But
yeah. The
yeah,
Studio 3 one is like a gas station.
yeah,
It does get cleaned, just not by
yeah,
me.
yeah. I mean, that's kind of off your plate, but yeah, it's a
Yeah.
cold bathroom in an old building.
Oh, they
Like,
have a heater now, at least.
oh, well, that's
Yeah,
nice.
and graffiti.
Yeah, it is all the things that, yeah, kind of go in there. So when did you have to stop doing photography when it's like okay, this is it more because of this or is it more personal reasons? Like
No, it's
what
just time.
yeah.
Um, yeah, this is a lot. It's a lot
Yeah.
to run. And my kids are 13 and 7, so it's not like, they're off doing their own thing.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah, gets to be
throw in
quite a bit.
any sort of personal life issue, and that's everything. There's nothing
Yeah.
left.
You're like, "Okay, I can't handle this too." But
Yeah,
it's great
it,
you have
it got
help.
to the point where I was turning around my sessions in like a month and a half or 2 months.
Mm.
And for me, that was not
That's how
okay.
I am too, which is standard for a lot of photographers. But for
It
me, I'm like that hanging over my head that is not done
it
is
literally eats
stressful.
at me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I have to do it right away. Otherwise, I'm like, I won't care about it again, like later. Like it's
I
lost
totally
all
get
its
that.
like excitement. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I want to do it when it's still exciting. Um, Otherwise, I'm moving on to the next thing. And so I'm like, I want to do all the best stuff when I'm most excited. So I get that.
Yeah,
Um,
and I don't want to deliver something subpar, and at this
yeah,
point it would be subpar.
yeah, definitely. There's a standard of excellence you want to like meet with that.
Yeah.
So, what is your process when it comes to like holiday setups? So, like, do you do a lot of, or maybe what did it used to look like? Like,
I wish there
is
was
it
a
more
process.
lax now?
Oh,
Is it more like where you're like outsourcing it a little bit? Is it more
no.
like how does that work for you?
Okay. So, well, a thing that is kind of side note, and I don't want to stay focused on it too long. I think
Yeah.
you do know this, that my dad passed away right about when I needed to start doing them this year.
Yeah.
So, and last year he was quite sick starting about that time too. So, for the past
Mm-hmm.
2 years, that has really impacted my
Yeah.
process that doesn't exist. But I can tell you that they start releasing the Christmas trends or whatever in like
Yeah.
June or July.
Mm.
So I start trying to look at them. I have it on my calendar because it's the middle of summer. I have to
Yeah.
be forced. I have to
You're
have
like, I don't want to deal with
events
this.
because
It's
I do not want to think about Christmas.
yeah.
um,
It's like
but
retailers, how they feel, I'm sure.
yeah, and I start trying to like see and guess, what are people
Mm-hmm.
gonna like. But those trends are more of like the home decor thing. It's not really what the photographers are going to be
Yeah.
wanting. And honestly, by the time all of that starts to hit the internet, it's already too late for me. I
Mm.
had to have already posted, announced, whatever.
Yeah.
So my process is basically to be a ball of stress,
Mm.
completely freaking out about making decisions for everybody else that I don't even use. Or
Yeah.
necessarily, like, I think people think I just do what I like. I don't even
Yeah.
necessarily like some of the stuff that I have in my studios because that's not what I'm doing. I'm
Yeah.
catering to your needs, your clients' needs, and I'm trying to guess what those are.
Yeah.
So, takeaway, please send me suggestions. People think they're overstepping. They're not. You're not. No, send them my way. I
Yeah.
need them.
Yeah, for sure. I know that's something where it's like, okay, what is trendy? What do we want? What do we have? Yeah, that's definitely something I've noticed like you're like very into like send me if you see something like really cool, send it to me and let's see if we
Well,
can make it
a
work
large
and
part of it is, I mean, I did mention before we were recording that I've really done a terrible job with like updating the website, posting on social
mhm.
media, etc. I actually looked in my little digital well-being section of my phone, and I have been on social media for 2 minutes this week
Oh.
in the last 7 days.
Yeah.
2 minutes. I don't have that time. That is
Yeah.
definitely why I want
Yeah.
all the
But it's
suggestions.
nice that you have your like private Facebook group because like people are like, what do the setups look like right now? I mean, if they're taking their photos when they leave the session, they have a photo of what it looks like.
And
Like,
that is so nice when you guys
yeah,
answer each other.
yeah.
Very helpful, especially now that Meta has messed up everything. I don't,
Oh,
sorry,
I
Meta,
know.
but what is happening? I can't even find the member requests.
Right? It's
Ugh,
like why do I have to go into this separate app to figure things out? But
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely find like, yeah, just send over what it currently looks like right now and kind of know what that is. I get it. Like, just kind of, it helps things a little bit. But well, is there anything else you want someone that might be wondering about studios that they should know, that you're like, this is a piece of advice that I'd love to give someone who's thinking about owning a studio, or maybe owns one now that they need to know before they're renting it out to people? What would be your piece of advice?
I'd say, like, generically, I did already say it in the beginning, but you can't know what you will have to become callous to. So you might want to start prepping yourself right now. Just
Mm,
literally imagine all the work you just did being destroyed in a matter of days, because that is not an exaggeration. It happens weekly.
mm,
I know my volume is a little higher than others, but I know it's happening everywhere.
yeah.
Locally, if you are thinking, oh, I want to do that, I think I'm going to do that, I think that's something that people are missing, and I could be wrong, but I think our creative brains really don't look at the business side so easily. I know mine
Mm-hmm.
doesn't. The market is being diluted,
Mm-hmm.
quickly being
Yeah,
diluted.
I
So,
agree.
I'm still here. I'm pretty big, but the more of you that open up and pop up, there's a ton of photographers, but there's not enough for this many different studios.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody's going to go under if too many more people do this.
Yeah. Yeah, it is kind of one of those things where it is kind of, and I think you kind of have a little bit of an upper hand in that because you've been around so long. Like, your name is out there, like people know of, because like it takes a while to get yourself established and like let people know about you and that kind of stuff. And I mean,
It
there's
does.
stuff I'm finding out that someone existed for a while and I'm like, I've never even heard of them, that they're in this area, um which is very interesting to me. But yeah, I think you have a platform where you're like, I've been here a while, people know about us. Kind of helps you in a way. But
It
yeah.
does. Yeah, definitely. And I think I have the reputation of, being easy to work with and
Yeah.
caring and nice, and that helps too.
Yeah, definitely. I completely agree when it comes to that. But so I know you mentioned you need your website updated, but regardless, where can we find GR Studios on the web?
grstudiospace.com.
I love
Easy.
it. And there's a private Facebook group, if you become a renter, that you can be a part of, and find all the setups, talk to other photographers. It's actually kind of a cool group because we all share things, kind of networking in there too, which is really nice. It's kind of something
Yeah.
that's been set up, um, to where we can all communicate and have a likeness. Um, if
Yeah.
you want to follow the podcast more, you can find us at carahainesphotography.com/podcast, or you can find us at Cameras and Coffee Podcast on TikTok and on Instagram. Danielle, this was so great. I know it's some of the stuff where I'm just like, let's chat about this for years. And I'm glad that we finally got to talk a little bit through this, a little bit, get to know each other a little bit more. So thank you for
Me
coming on
too.
today.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Well, friends, this concludes our episode, about what you don't know about owning a photography studio with Danielle. And until next time, I just want to say cheers.